نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله الذي خلقكم من ضعف ثم جعل من بعد ضعف قوة ثم جعل من بعد قوة ضعفا وشيبا يخلق ما يشاء وهو العليم القدير. ويوم تقوم الساعة يقسم المجرمون ما لبثوا غير ساعة كذلك كانوا يؤفكون. وقال الذين أوتوا العلم والإيمان لقد لبثتم في كتاب الله إلى يوم البعث فهذا يوم البعث ولكنكم كنتم لا تعلمون. فيومئذ لا ينفع الذين ظلموا معذرتهم ولا هم يستعتبون. ولقد ضربنا للناس في هذا القرآن من كل مثل ولئن جئتهم بآية ليقولن الذين كفروا إن أنتم إلا مبطلون. كذلك يطبع الله على قلوب الذين لا يعلمون. فاصبر إن وعد الله حق ولا يستخفنك الذين لا يوقنون. Respectful honored friends, the verses that have been recited are from the final and the last ruku of Surah Rum. In last week's tafsir, due to time restraints, we had rushed through the last two verses of the previous ruku. The translation we had covered, it was a little of the tafsir that was remaining, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the previous verses had mentioned to us some of His qudrat, of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends the winds and how they bring the glad tidings of rainfall and the reaction to that from those who do not believe. And in the end Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that فَإِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَ وَلَا تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ الدُّعَاءَ إِذَا وَلَّوْا مُدْبِرِينَ. That you cannot make the dead hear, nor can you make the deaf hear a call, إِذَا وَلَّوْا مُدْبِرِينَ, when they turn their backs. And here we mentioned that here, لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَ, the mawta refers towards those who are, one tafsir was, those who are spiritually dead. That despite the efforts that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made, those who did not believe refused to accept the truth because they are spiritually dead. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is told that you cannot make the spiritually dead or hear the truth because they do not want to hear it. And simply, you cannot make the deaf hear a call, and especially when إِذَا وَلَّوْا مُدْبِرِينَ, when they turn their backs. So that's one tafsir. And the other tafsir here is of what? فَإِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى refers towards those who are physically dead. That you cannot make the dead hear. And this is a masala, a ruling that had been previously mentioned, and we mentioned in Surah Naml as well, the previous surah, with regards to Sima'ul Mawta, whether the deceased can hear or not. Because here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that you cannot make the spiritually dead hear. But we do know in the hadith that is mentioned that when a person is buried in the grave, and when the people depart from there, the mayyit hears the footsteps of those who depart from the grave. Also in the riwayat it is mentioned that when a person visits a qabristan and reads the dua and makes salam, the deceased hear that as well. So there are indication in the hadith of occasions wherein the deceased does hear. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. In brief, there is no contradiction here. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not reject And this is a mas'ala with regards to do that disease here or not. This has been a topic of dispute between the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala as well. Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala has opinion, no, they cannot. Sayyidina Umar was of the opinion that they can. And because of that, there was different opinion amongst the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala as well with regards to whether the deceased can hear or not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as mentioned, there is a hadith that indicate towards it. And just when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, after the battle of Badr, came to the Qalib of Badr, to the well of Badr, wherein the various leaders who had been slain from the Quraysh, their bodies had been thrown in there, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam addressed them. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala questioned Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, just the way you hear, they hear me as just as clear as you hear me as well. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La tusmi'ul mawta. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you cannot make the deceased hear. So one is the deceased hearing, and the other is we make the deceased hear. And these are two different things. When it comes to this issue, which Allah Ta'ala clarifies here, that sima'ul mawta in the form of the mayyit having their own choice of hearing when they want to, or that we speak to the mayyit whenever we want to, that is something which does not happen. That's what I said, that tusmi'ul mawta, that we cannot make the mayyit hear. So we cannot go to the qabristan, and then at the qabristan we sit there and we have a chit chat with the mayyit, and we talk to the mayyit, hoping, thinking that the mayyit is able to hear what we are talking to them. And that's what Allah Ta'ala says, that you cannot make the mayyit hear. Which means that the mayyit does hear, but the mayyit only hears when Allah Ta'ala enables the mayyit to hear. And when can the mayyit hear? That is those occasions which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in the hadith, the footsteps, the salam that is made, the dua that is made for them. So there are only those occasions wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows them to hear, are they able to hear. So in general, they do not have the capability of hearing our conversations, and I'm sending our messages to them, so you go there, you have a talk with them, saying this has happened, that has happened, or so. They are not able to hear that. So there is not a case of total rejection, denying the fact that there is no, the mayyit cannot hear whatsoever, but it's a case of la tusmi'ul mawta, that we cannot make them hear. And then further Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the last verse, وَمَا أَنْتَ بِهَذِ الْأُمِّي أَنْ ضَلَالَتِهِمْ إِن تُسْمِعُ إِلَّا مَنْ يُؤْمِنُ بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Where Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentions that you cannot guide those who are umya as well, meaning here referring towards those who are spiritually blind from their deviation. You can only make those people here who believe in the ayat and are willing to be Muslims. This was just what was left from last week's tafsir. Further, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this last ruku, in the opening verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a prominent reminder of the reality of our existence here in this world. In this Surah Rum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been addressing those who deny and reject the existence of the hereafter. And why will a person be in denial? That is because when a person is healthy and a person is fit and a person is in the youth, there is an age of there is an age of rebellion and an age of denial. And that is the age that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here warns us that do not let that get to your head. Do not allow that to get to your head. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that Allahu alladhi khalaqakum min du'fin. It is Allah Ta'ala who created you min du'fin in a state of weakness. ثم جعل من بعد ضعف قوة. Then substituted strength after the weakness. Min ba'di dhufin, after the weakness, Allah Ta'ala gave strength. And then ثُمَّ جَعَلَ مِن بَعْدِ قُوَّةٍ ضُعْفًا. And then after the strength will again give weakness. وَشَيْبًا. And not only that, but old age. يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allah creates whatever He wills. وَهُوَ الْعَلِيمُ الْقَدِيرُ. And Allah, He is all-knowing, all-powerful. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions 3 stages in the life of a person. Allah Ta'ala says, خَلَقَكُم مِّن ضُعْفٍ. Allah Ta'ala is the one who created you in a state of weakness. And this is how insan has been created, that when insan was created, one is in regards to dha'f, that material from which insan had been created itself was inferior material. Material which doesn't have any quwwah and strength in it itself. The semen, this liquid that is there, nothing so powerful or strong, and that too it is what? Ma'in maheen, filthy water. But from that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created insan. So our existence itself comes from something that is so weak. And then when we were born, and you came into this world, an infant is what? Not mighty and powerful. The infant is also very small, tiny, and very weak as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the infancy here in dha'f. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, we were in a state of لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا, didn't know anything at all, in a total state of weakness. And it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who granted the child the understanding of what to do. And this is also from the Qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we mentioned last week's tafsir, the various manifestations of the Qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What itself is, and we don't have time to go into that, the development of the child in the womb of the mother itself, which is just a science of its own, and that itself is so miraculous and so unique on its own. And then the child, when the child is born as well, whilst in the womb of the mother, the child didn't have any lessons there, teaching the child that, look, when you are in need for anything, when you are in pain, when you need something, you are hungry or thirsty, then you need to cry. And this is how you cry. The child was not taught that. Similarly, when the child was in the womb of the mother, it wasn't taught as well that your first food is going to be what? Your nourishment, your necessity is going to be what? Your mother's milk. And then how the child should suckle onto the mother. The child did not go through any lessons at all. The mother doesn't know how to do these things, so she gets lessons, and she may be told by the midwife and the nurses and that, look, this is the procedure that you need to undertake, this is what you need to do. She may have lessons, but the child in the womb was not given any such lessons at all. La ta'lamuna shay'a, didn't know anything at all, knew nothing at all. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gave that child that knowledge, that the child learns how to cry. In any pain it is, distress it is, the child, the baby will cry. The baby bring it towards the mother and it knows what it needs to do. And it will feed in such a manner as well. This is the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That whole state of weakness, which is a state of a helpless infant, who doesn't know you have to do everything for that child. And then it reaches an age where the child is able to physically do their own self. They can eat themselves, they can go to the toilet themselves, they can wear their own clothing, they can walk about in that. But still they are still in a state of weakness. There's so many things that they're still unable to do. After that period of time, fast track a little, and then ثُمَّ جَعْلَ مِنْ بَعْدِ ضُعْفٍ قُوَّةٍ. Then Allah Ta'ala says that after that du'f comes about strength. Then when you grow into adulthood. Now it is this period of time that when a person comes into this quwwah, state of quwwah, that a person forgets their past, and if a person does not think towards the future. As we just think about now. Neither do we think about what's going to happen in front of us and the akhirat, the qiyamah, whatever we have in front of us. We don't have any consciousness of those things at all. As in Ali radiallahu ta'ala mentions, that ad-dunya muqbilatun wal akhiratu murtahilatun, that it is muqbilatun. That dunya and akhirat difference is that the akhirat is what you are heading towards, and dunya is what you have left behind. That your age here in this world, your dunya is one. That as we are leaving that behind. Each day that we pass in our lives, we are leaving the dunya behind, and we are going closer and closer towards the akhirah. And alhamdulillah, Muslims are so happy to go to the akhirah that each time they reach a year closer to the akhirah, they celebrate. They celebrate, which is a good thing, that they're so looking forward to the akhirah, that when 1 year passes of their life and they become now 1 year closer to the grave, we have a party about it, we celebrate about it. Why? Because we know we've lived such an auspicious and pious and righteous year of our lives, that we can celebrate in Jannah, so we already celebrate in advance here. So this is what we are celebrating. Not realizing what is it we are celebrating. We are celebrating that what? We are going closer towards the akhirah. And as in the Arabic khutbah I mentioned today as well, as in Hassan Basir mentioned as well, that each day of your life is what? Your life going. Each day is your life going. That is what's happening. That whatever your lifespan is, each day is eating in to our lifespan. So in this way a person reaches the state of quwwah. And when a person is in the state of quwwah, that is when pride and arrogance, these things set in a person, as I mentioned, rebellion and denial. And that's when a person doesn't want to accept the ahkam of the Qur'an, does not want to accept that there is the akhirat if a person does not believe. And that's the time wherein a person at that stage says what? That there is nobody stronger than us. That we are those who are the most powerful, and there is nobody who has more quwwah than us. And in doing so, a person then forgets that the weakness that they had developed from. Forgetting the fact that, look, this is the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from what brought somebody to what. And this is something that we ourselves should also pay heed to. It is a time when people do have their photos, and that even if no digital, and that people in the past would take photographs. So some people may still have photos of when they were a baby. So a person should look at that. That look, this is what I was, and look and where I am now. And this is the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how tiny we were to how we develop, and a person is then in that state, that life of when they are in quwwah. And because of that quwwah, the person has arrogance in them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds them that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who gave you this quwwah from the dhawf that you had. And what lies ahead of you is not going to be more power. More strength is not going to come your way. Now you have reached the peak of your strength. You're not going to become stronger now thereafter. Until then a person reaches the peak, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ جَعَلَ مِن بَعْدِ قُوَّةٍ ضُعْفًا. Now that you've reached the peak of your strength, what comes after that is dhawf again, weakness. What comes is weakness. And just see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings this transition as well in our lives. You do not have an infant who is in infancy, who develops a little and then goes to sleep and then wakes up as a teenager. And from a teenager becomes a young adult all of a sudden. And then a person is a young adult and then all of a sudden they go to sleep, wake up, and they're going to walk and stick in their hand. It doesn't happen in such a manner. But how naturally there is that process and that change that comes about from that infancy to teenage, adolescence, and the changes that come about, the physical changes that come about. And then also the physical changes in that quwwah, the strength that comes about now. Where the same child who was so light becomes heavy now, who was very light as a feather now has strength, their hands, their body, they have strength now. Physically they are stronger as well. And then as you go, naturally the body then starts changing, another development comes into the body which leads towards old age. And that is the quwwah that Allah, the change that Allah Ta'ala mentions here. And not only that, but then when that du'af comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, du'fa wa shayba. That weakness is what weakness? Because that weakness is not a temporary weakness. As a person becomes ill, you become a bit weak and then you regain strength again. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, that is a weakness. And as with that weakness will come what? Old age. Meaning that weakness will eventually bring you towards old age. So, min ba'di quwwatin du'fan wa shayba. So this is the du'f which brings towards you shayba, and shayba means old age. And that's when then the signs of old age kick in. And a person now physically will feel the physical changes that come about within them. A couple of months ago, met somebody as well, after a while. And that person was talking to me, and they are now in the 50s. Early 50s, this in the early 50s. And they were then mentioning as well, look, things change when you reach 50. Things change when you reach 50. It's not the same. It's not the same. Take a bus. Okay. अभी इस दौरान अभी देर है जरा अभी 50 के करीब है लेकिन इतना करीब भी नहीं है अभी थोड़ा है थोड़ा देर बहरहाल is going to come anyway. So as much as you want to not for it to come, is going to come, isn't it? So all it will come, and with that the physical changes that will come. One is the changing of the color of your hair. That is already the sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then physically as well, that weakness may come about, the aches and the pains, the joints, and whatever else. The structure of a person, that upright, strong structure starts changing as well. Person starts losing that uprightness within them. So these changes start coming in an individual, which leads towards what? Du'af. That's why when you see the elderly people, especially those who are old and frail, who need help and assistance, who you have to hold to walk and that. So these were not, and I always mentioned this, they were not born that way. They were also once upon a time, and they will show us, this is how I was when I was young. And those who are old, who sit there and they can't eat now, they'll say, Hamari Jawan, we used to eat so many parathas. We used to eat so many rotis. We used to eat so much, and we used to do so much, we used to walk so much, we used to lift so much, we used to work so much. So it shows that, look, they had that day of quwwat as well. But now they have what? Du'af. That's why the elders look at them and take lessons that, look, they are our future. They are our future. That is where we are going to become, and that is where we are going to reach as well. Life remains, that is what's going to come to us as well. Coming back to tafsir, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us, that when a person is in that period of quwwah, the person forgets the past and they forget what lies in front of them. And that arrogance comes in. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicating here that, look, from this entire life of yours, the period of dhuf is more than that of quwwah. So that period of time wherein you do have quwwah is not going to last for long. That period is not going to last for long because dhuf is going to come. Hence it is the period of quwwah. That is a time when a person needs to do the most in their lives for the sake of the akhirah. And that is the lesson Allah Ta'ala is giving us. Look, for anything for that matter, if you're weak, you have uzr, isn't it? You have an excuse because you are weak now. The elderly are excused, the young are excused. So who are not excused? It is those who have the quwwah. But that period of time of quwwah is not going to last forever, but that is the prime period in our lives that we need to make the most of, and that is the period which we need to do most for the hereafter. And that's what Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions as well. Badiru bil a'mali sab'an. That hasten towards doing good deeds before 7 things develop. And 7 things come in your life. Are you waiting for these things? And then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, haram. Are you waiting for old age? That why do you not do good deeds when you are young? What is it that you're waiting for? Because what you are waiting for is going to be old age. So all of us, those who are young and not doing good deeds, who are not doing anything for the sake of the akhirah, should take heed from this. That if we are saying later and later, as I mentioned, the topic was in Jummah Bayan today. So if it's a case of ainda, and kal, and tomorrow, what lies tomorrow? Tomorrow lies du'af. Weakness is what lies tomorrow. So is it that weakness that we're waiting for? That now we can't walk to the masjid, we can't get to the masjid for salah. So what are we waiting for? When we become old, that will go then with the walking stick and then will go then in the wheelchair. You won't be able to then, so this is the time that you need to be going for. Each year you're delaying the Hajj. When you have the quwwah and the money, Hajj has become farz on you. You have the quwwah, what you waiting for? The time later on that now you need to look for somebody who's ready, who in the family is ready to take us for Hajj. Is that what we're waiting for? So what is it that we're waiting for to do later? We're not fasting now. We'll start fasting next year, for what? For when the time waiting now you're so weak and frail that you can't fast. So when we reach that age, then that's the age wherein you're not going to be able to do any of these deeds. And that is the age wherein now you will have a valid shari'i uzr as well not to do these. Means that when a person becomes old, then and frail, that a person cannot fast, then there is a shari'i uzr for them that they cannot fast. They're so frail. Because they are so old, they can't get to the masjid, they read their salat at home. They can't stand and read salat, they'll sit and read salat. So there are these things which they cannot do later on. With regards to other khidmat of deen, service of deen as well. We understand that the age of quwwat is when we can do as much as possible work-wise to earn as much as possible. But then the same we understand that this is a time that we should be earning as much as possible for the akhirat. Now this is a time that we can do so much khidmat of deen, services of deen, so much that we can do with regards to akhirat. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us that let this quwwah, period of quwwah, not deceive you, because it's not going to last forever. You have the dhaf that you had before, and there is the dhaf which is that of shayba, because the first dhaf will still bring quwwat with it. The first dhaf, weakness brings after it quwwah. But Allah Ta'ala said, but this dhaf is not going to bring any quwwah after that, because this is that dhaf wa shayba, because this is that weakness that brings old age with it. And in old age you're not going to now gain extra strength in that. يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allah creates whatever He will. وَهُوَ الْعَلِيمُ الْقَدِيرُ. And He is all knowing and all powerful. يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allah Ta'ala creates whatever He will. Shows us how Allah Ta'ala has created insan as well. Throughout the whole development, this is through the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that with regards to those who reject this, reject the akhirah, that وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ. The day when Qiyamah will dawn, يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. The mujrimeen, meaning the criminals, the sinners, they will swear an oath by saying to Allah, that مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ السَّاعَةِ. We never stayed more than a moment. We never stayed more than a moment. كَذَلِكَ كَانُوا يُؤْفَكُونَ. In this manner, they were always deceived. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that on the day of Qiyamah, when the sinful ones will be resurrected, they will take an oath and they will say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of Qiyamah that مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ السَّاعَةِ. That we never stayed more than a moment. Stayed where? This refers to either in the world or it means that in the grave. That in the day of Qiyamah they will say that the life of this world seemed to be just a short moment. That because it was so short, they will say, we didn't have enough time to contemplate over Islam. These are excuses they will make. That the lifespan was so short, we didn't have enough time to study Islam. We didn't get enough time to Google Islam, find out more about Islam. Or more proof did not come to us, because we were only in the world for a short period of time. That is what they will say, meaning that the time here in this world will seem so trivial, so short to them in the hereafter, that it wasn't much at all. Or it could also mean that because they enjoyed themselves and time passes when you are enjoying it, and because those who do not believe, they enjoy life here. And because they enjoyed life here on the day of Qiyamah, they'll say, the time just passed by so quickly that it didn't seem at all that we had much of a life. And the other tafsir is that مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ السَّاعَةِ. Mufassirin mentioned that مَا لَبِثُوا refers was the grave. That for the disbelievers, the main adhab is going to be, the most tormentful adhab is going to be that of the hereafter. And compared to that, the punishment in the grave will be a lot lighter compared to the punishment of the hereafter. And now because they know that the punishment of the hereafter is going to be a lot worse, so they will make excuses that, no, put us back in the grave. The time in the grave is very short, a very short period there. We'd rather be there in the grave where the adab and the punishment is not as severe as it is here in the akhirah. Because they know that that is going to be now worse for them. So for that they will see that the period that we were there in Barzakh, that period was very short for us. That it didn't seem anything at all to us. Allah Ta'ala says, كَذَلِكَ كَانُوا يُؤْفَكُونَ. That they were always, it is in this manner, means just the way they will be deceived, to misrepresent the duration of this day. Allah Ta'ala says, they were always deceived, meaning in this world, by shaitan, and the other factors that led them towards kufr, towards sin, that turned them away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that already here in this world they were always deceived, that we're going to live here forever, and this is the best place to be, and this is everything is here. So they were deceived, and then with regards to this matter as well, they are just as deceived as well. And on the contrary, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ وَالْإِيمَانَ لَقَدْ لَبِثْتُمْ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْبَعْثِ. And in response to this, Allah Ta'ala says that those given knowledge refers towards the human beings, believers, and also those who are the angels. That those who are given knowledge, ilm, wal iman and iman, they will say that لَقَدْ لَبِثْتُمْ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْبَعْثِ. By Allah's book, you lived until the day of resurrection. That when they will say this, then the angels and the believers will counter them and respond to them by saying that no, you lived, meaning in the grave till the day of resurrection. فَهَذَا يَوْمُ الْبَعْثِ. This is now the day of resurrection. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. But you never understood. Meaning the reality of it, you didn't accept. The day of Qiyamah, you were told that look, the day of Qiyamah is going to come this way. For us as believers, we always told, look, the day of Qiyamah, the day of Qiyamah, the day of resurrection, the day of resurrection, Yawm al-Ba'th. But we reject it, but on that day it will be there in front of us. فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا يَنْفَعُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مَعْذِرَتُهُمْ وَلَا هُمْ يُسْتَعْتَبُونَ. On this day, will not benefit them those who zalamu ma'ziratuhum, the oppressors' excuses, meaning that on this day the excuses of the oppressors will not benefit them. وَلَا هُمْ يُسْتَعْتَبُونَ. And neither will they be given the opportunity to what? To make amends for the wrongdoings, to repent and plead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or to ask again the opportunity to come back to this world. That opportunity will not be given to anybody at all. In ma'aziratun, their excuses, that we didn't live long enough, we didn't have this, Nabi didn't come, this didn't come, that didn't come. And we as believers as well, the same with us. That's for them is that of kufr. For us is with regards to akhirat. We'll also make excuses. And we'll also wonder if only we can come back in the world. And then we went to the masjid, we kept the salah, we kept the sawm, we did give our zakat, we did the hajj, we did all nakis and the good deeds that we could have done. But وَلَهُمْ يُسْتَعْتَبُونَ. The opportunity won't be given at all, because this is the opportunity Allah has given us here in this world now. وَلَقَدْ ضَرَبْنَا لِلنَّاسِ فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ. Allah Ta'ala says that we have undoubtedly explained every type of example, excellent subject for people in this Qur'an. And in the Qur'an, Allah Ta'ala has given so many mathal, so many examples to us, so many things to open things up for us to understand. وَإِنْ جِئْتَهُمْ بِآيَةٍ لَيَقُولَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا مُبْطِلُونَ. And if you bring any verses to them, or here ayah can refer to as a miracle at Anbiya, لَيَقُولَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Indeed, those who have committed kufr will say, in antum illa mubtilun. You are merely people of falsehood. That when the Anbiya would bring about any miracle, they would say, this is nothing but false. كَذَلِكَ يَتْبُ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Thus has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set upon a seal upon the hearts of those who have no knowledge. That their hearts have a seal upon it. That no matter when the Anbiya even brought clear miracles to them, even that they rejected. No, this is nothing but magic. This is nothing but what falsehood. This is nothing but an illusion. So even for that they made excuses. Allah Ta'ala says, فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَلَا يَسْتَخِفَّنَّكَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Allah Ta'ala says, so exercise patience. Because وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. Allah Ta'ala's promise is certain. Here if Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that despite the aggression and the rejection of the disbelievers, have exercised patience. Because the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is certainly true, meaning to assist you against them. And وَلَا يَسْتَخِفَنَّ الَّذِينَ لَا يُقِنُونَ. And do not let those who do not have conviction make you impatient. Do not make you impatient, those who do not have any conviction, yaqeen. So those who don't have conviction in Allah's promise make you impatient, meaning that whenever they would come to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to bring the azab, you warning us of the azab, when the azab is going to come, when the azab is going to come. So don't become impatient to that. And ask Allah Ta'ala, when the azab will come, when will they realize? Leave it, because don't let them affect you at all, because inna wa'dallahi haqqan. Whether the azab comes or not, the promise of Allah Ta'ala is true, so the azab of Allah Ta'ala upon them will definitely come. If it doesn't come here in this world, it will definitely come on them on the hereafter. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on these verses has completed Surah Rum, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions with regards to Akhirat as well as various signs of His great, various Qudrat and that. And this Surah Rum is that Surah which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on one occasion recited Surah Rum in the Fajr Salah. And when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam recited Surah Rum in Fajr Salah, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam needed a luqma. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam became a little confused. And after which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that this confusion has come about because there are those who join us in Salah but do not do their wuzu correctly. So those who come for the Salah to do their wuzu correctly. Which indicates what? That when the Imam is on the Musalla, there is that spiritual connection between the Imam and the Muqtadi as well. If the Muqtadi, they are spiritually aligned, then it will help the Imam in his Qiraat as well. If those behind are not, then that also has an effect on the Qiraat, and that also has an effect on the Imam as well. There is a link that is there. And another hadith that Nabi Kareem mentioned, that when those behind are not concentrating in Salah, that's when mistakes also occur in the Salat of the Imam as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all understanding of whatever we have learned in this surah, and give us the tawfiq to also make the most of the life that Allah has given, especially a period of Quwwah. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله.